So, bonjour, good morning, and I wish the conference is going very well. I wanted to be there in person, but I couldn't. So, I'm here sharing with you some of the cases and ideas from my practice. The topic of today, what I want to talk to you, is the synergy in homeopathy. And what is synergy? It's an integrated approach to case taking and case analysis. And what are we exactly integrating? We are integrating three things: the symptoms, the system, and the genius. What are these symptoms, system, and genius? I would like to play a small video for you.
Correctly prescribing homeopathic remedies is an art. It's the art of carefully fitting pathogenetic to clinical symptoms. It requires a special aptness in grasping the essential points of symptom images, great drudgery in mastering a working knowledge of our large materia medica, or a most skillful use of many books of reference. There is a way to simplify and introduce method into this work so that the truly homeopathic curative remedy may be worked out with greater ease and certainty. It's a combination of three unique patterns. The first one is the pattern of symptom. It's based on the method of repertory, materia medica, and keynotes, with its comparison of the symptoms of a remedy to those of the patient. This is the traditional approach and has been the foundation for homeopathic practice. The second one is the pattern of system information. The discovery that each remedy has the qualities of its source has given a new dimension to our understanding of our materia medica. Use of this thematic understanding according to kingdom, subkingdom, and source information, along with miasms, has been termed the sensation approach. The third pattern is the pattern of the genius. The genius is a much more subtle aspect than symptoms or system. It's the main idea, the flavor, the essence, the grand general of the remedy. Initially, it was thought that the genius of each remedy can be represented in a few words. For example, weakness and restlessness for arsenicum album. However, such an oversimplified expression can create confusion, because such a genius would describe several other remedies, like zincum metallicum and rus toxicodendron. In order to make the genius relevant, we need to expand its expression to reveal the larger pattern of general traits of the remedy. For example, in arsenicum album, along with weakness and restlessness, we have burning, sudden intense effects, acrid secretions, destructive processes, and malignancy. Altogether, these form the pattern which is the genius of arsenicum album. When we find that all these three unique patterns point to the same remedy, we are assured of success. There can be cases, though, when we may not be able to match all three patterns with the same remedy. In these cases, we have to decide what to prioritize based on what is clear and prominent. Each case needs a somewhat different approach and technique. The approach we use depends on the level of experience of the patient. For example, if the patient is giving local symptoms and modalities, and if these are peculiar and characteristic, then they are a ready anchor to the case. When choosing a remedy according to the pattern of symptoms, the repertory becomes an important tool, like a bridge between the patient and the remedy. But the repertory can sometimes be as misleading as it can be useful, because mechanical repertorization, especially with common symptoms, usually leads to polycrests like sulfur. The most accurate way to narrow down options is through precise evaluation of symptoms, choosing the proper repertory, while checking to see if the remedy that emerges from the repertory filter has the main elements of the system approach and matches the genius of the case. This is an integrated approach that enables homeopaths to come up with prescriptions that are more rounded, complete, and sure. The approach is reproducible and flexible. It gives homeopaths more possible ways of coming to the remedy, and so greatly increases the likelihood of a good prescription.
Sensation, because most of you are familiar with symptoms and you use symptoms in your practice. So what is this dimension of sensation? The way we get to it is the sensation is the experience. So you have a headache, you can have a headache with a location, with a modality, but what is the experience of the headache? How does the patient experience his complaint? That is the sensation. And we find that the sensation is common between mind and body. So the experience of the physical complaints or the chief complaint is the same as the experience in his fear, in his crisis moments in his life, in his dreams, in his interests and hobbies, in the way he lives his life. When we see what is the experience behind each of this, you find it's the same pattern, and that pattern is the sensation. And when we get to that pattern, we are able to then classify that experience or pattern into either an animal, mineral or plant. And this makes our remedy selection much more sure and definite. I want to illustrate that with some cases. The first case is a case of a woman of 43 years with migraine. This case was taken in the Other Song Academy, where I am speaking right now from. And this is an academy in Mumbai, India, which gives clinical training. We have an entire clinic, and these cases are live relayed to participants who watch them day after day. And I think this is absolutely the best way of learning homeopathy. So this lady came to the clinic of the academy with a headache, and she described the headache as something that comes suddenly, something that erupts, something that is horrible, something that is unbearable, something that is throbbing, something that makes her paranoid and very jittery. This is how she described her headache. And she said that she is a very fearful person. She says, I just get very scared of the dark and I get a sinking feeling. I feel as if the earth is just giving way below my feet. And there is a lot of violence in her life. For example, in her childhood, she could not go into a dark room. She said, I was scared. If somebody had died in the vicinity, I would be thinking that he is somewhere, he is there in the room, he will find me. And as a child also, a lot of violence in her house between her father and her mother. She recalled an incident where the parents had been separated. The father was living with some other woman, and one day he came home, and these people had been to a party, they had already eaten, and he said, where's my food? And the mother said, I'm preparing. And before she could even prepare the food, he took the vessel and just threw it on her head. It hit her on the head and she was bleeding. So this is the kind of violence that the child was exposed to. You can see in her childhood. And then again, this man, her father, had gone to some other woman and she was living with him. And this woman, she says, was a really third grade woman who had left her husband. She had 5 children. She was an absolutely shameless woman. For example, she said, much later, she went and asked the woman, her one the father was with, and she said, when you abuse my father so much, because the woman was quite abusive, she said, why are you with him? And the woman pointed to the bed and she said, because of this, meaning because of sex. So this kind of shameless and unembarrassed behavior. Also, she described the woman as a manipulator. She will incite the child against the father against the child, etc. So then she describes these incidents of great violence in her childhood. But this woman herself has another history. She got involved with a married guy, and then he separated from his wife, he married her, but there were a lot of problems. And early on in the marriage, she said she was very, very aggressive. She would fight and quarrel with her husband all the time. And when she got very angry, he would yell, scream, and bang her head on the wall. She said she was very, very affected when the husband did not keep his word. She is very particular about commitment. She says, if I commit, I will keep it at any cost. I cannot bear being cheated or being betrayed. And when she was asked how she would react if she was betrayed or if the husband cheated on her, she said quite affirmatively, I will kill him. I cannot bear any betrayal. So this was what we got from her story. And now we can analyze this in three ways. First way is you have the symptoms, and you can see striking himself, striking his head, desire to kill, quarrelsome, fear of the dark, imagination sees people, and also a strong fear to be suffocated. And you see here, you get the remedies, estramonium and hyoscyamus, and a little later on you get belladonna. Now, we see how she describes her father's lady friend, and she calls her shameless, sexual, manipulating, and inciting. One of the things that I guess you know very well and that I have seen in my practice very often is that when someone describes someone else, he is usually reflecting qualities of himself, in a way a kind of projection. So when we simply repertorize the rubrics inciting, deceitful, shameless, and lascivious, so you get again hyoscyamus as the remedy. So you can see from the symptomatology that you are getting hyoscyamus. But there is another way of looking at it, and that is from the other side. So from the other side, you have the levels. You can have the feelings or the imagination, but then you go down to the sensation and to the energy and to see what is available over here. And in this case, we can see that the mind and the body have the same sensation. Sensation is that which is common to mind and body. And what is it in her case? Let's have a look. So we see here both the headache and all the crisis situations in her life, the experience is, it is sudden, there is terror, and there is fright. This you can see in all her aspects, her migraine, her childhood, and her fears. Everything is sudden, severe, and there is reactivity. So there is an experience. This is happening to me, terror, and a reaction, violence, rage. So this kind of sensitivity and reactivity is typical of the plant kingdom. That is the main theme of the plant kingdom. And usually people of this kingdom very sentimental and emotional. Within the plant kingdom, each family has its own specific sensation. In this case, we have the sensation of the solanaceae. The solanaceae, you know, consists of remedies such as belladonna, hyoscyamus, stramonium, capsicum, tabacum, mandragora, and so forth. We have the program Mac repertory, which I use extensively, and this program helped me to find out what is the common sensation of the remedies of Solanaceae or any other family. The way I did it was to ask the program, tell me those rubrics in which the Solanaceae remedies are the highest percentage. And in this way, we derived from the materia medica and repertory the sensation of the family Solanaceae, and that is sudden, violent, spasmodic, terror, pursued, murder, snakes, black and white, and so forth. And the reaction is to strike, is to escape, is to shriek, is to have panic, to have rage, fight and flight reaction. So this is the pattern that you see in belladonna, that you see in stramonium, that you see in hyoscyamus. You're very familiar with all this. And this is the common sensation of Solanaceae. Now, how to differentiate the remedies of the family? How do you know which remedy to give? And for that, I saw that the sensation is the same, but the coping mechanism, the depth and the desperation of that sensation differs from remedy to remedy, and this is similar to the idea of miasms. So you can have a patient A who has the same sensation of fear, but he just avoids it. He doesn't want to face it. So he just lives his life so that he never has it. Or somebody else, a patient B, can say, oh, I am experiencing terror and panic, but no, I have to be in control. I cannot allow myself to lose control. I have to be there, the strong one, in this situation. Or you can have a third one who says, this fear is such that it is trapping me, it is suffocating me. I need to get out of this situation very quick, otherwise I would be suffocated by it. So these three types of ways of seeing the same sensation is represented by our miasms, and I created a pattern of 10 miasms, and as you can see here, the psychotic miasm has the theme of avoidance, cancer miasm has the theme of control, and tubercular miasm has the theme of suffocation, and other miasms with other depth and desperation of experience. So the patient A who wants to avoid the fear is in psychotic miasm, patient B who wants to control in cancer miasm, and the one who is trapped and suffocated in the tubercular miasm. And we created a chart. By studying each remedy, we try to understand what is the depth and desperation of each remedy and put it in the miasmatic chart. Now in this case, we find that the patient's fear comes like a crisis. The father comes home, he hits, there's a big crisis, and the crisis passes. This kind of depth you find similarly in migraine, comes as a big crisis and crisis passes. This crisis situation we put in typhoid miasm, in which there is hyoscyamus. So we are able to come to hyoscyamus also from the theme of Solanaceae and the theme of typhoid miasm. The third way to look at it is also the toxicology, because we find the alkaloid hyoscyamine acts as an antispasmodic, and it can cause sudden severe spasms, and that is the genius of hyoscyamus. Spasms, tremors, jerks, cramps, and active mania. So we are able to find hyoscyamus the remedy from the system, from the toxicology, from the materia medica, and from the repertory. And then we gave her hyoscyamus 1M. Here is the triangle. You see the genius, the symptoms, the fear to be betrayed, the kill desire, wrong she has suffered, striking, knocking his head against the wall. the solanaceous sensation, violent, sudden terror, horror, dark, pulsating goes, and the typhoid miasm crisis. Then from here we refer to the materia medica and we give her hyoscyamus, and in 2 years we have followed up regularly, but after a 2-year follow-up, here is what happened. Everything is okay. Her migraine completely went. She says, I have no problems at all. Her anxiety levels and her sensitivity and reactivity are significantly better. Energy levels are good, and there is much more peace at home than ever before. She says, the way I react to my child, to my husband, there is a huge difference than what it was earlier.